I found out about Mia's engagement dinner the same way I've learned about half the so-called family milestones in the past few years, by accident and too late to matter. Not from an invite, not from a text, not even from Ava leaning over one morning to say, "Hey, your sister-in-law's getting engaged. Let's clear the evening." No, I was in the break room at work, stirring a paper cup of burnt coffee, scrolling through my phone to K*L the last 10 minutes of my lunch. There it was, sitting in my feed like a landmine, half a dozen tagged photos from Mia's big night. The first picture was a wide *T of a long table in a softly lit restaurant. The kind of place where the silverware never matches and the menus don't have prices. Mia was at the center with her fiancé, holding hands across the table. Ava was right next to her, leaning in close, mid-laugh, champagne glass in hand. And next to Ava, well, that's when my brain stalled for a second. Cole. Tall, good-looking in that way that photographs well even when the lighting is bad. A coworker of Ava's, I knew that much. He was smiling in the picture, his hand resting casually on her waist like it belonged there. Ava didn't look uncomfortable. If anything, she looked at home. I kept scrolling. The second photo was a tighter frame. Ava and Cole with their heads tipped toward each other, eyes crinkled in matching grins. Could have been a whisper, could have been a joke, could have been something else entirely. I didn't want to decide which. The third *T was the one that stuck. It wasn't even from the dinner itself, judging by the dim background and the string lights overhead. Ava was outside, standing under the soft glow of some patio heater, wearing a jacket that didn't belong to her. I recognized it from the work holiday party photos, Cole's jacket. Black, tailored, a little too big in the shoulders. She was pulling it tighter around herself, her hair slightly mussed from the wind, and she looked happy. Not the casual happy of a sister-in-law toasting an engagement. The other kind. I stared at that one the longest, until the phone's screen dimmed. By the time I got home that night, a lot of those posts had been scrubbed. One by one, they'd vanished from public view, replaced by a neater, cleaner story courtesy of Ava's family group chat. Suddenly, it wasn't an engagement dinner anymore. It was a small, work-adjacent get-together that had just happened to include Mia and Trevor announcing their news. And the guest list? A mix-up. The explanation rolled out as if it had been sitting in a drawer, ready to be handed to anyone who asked. "Sorry you weren't there, Ethan." They thought it was going to be mostly Trevor's side. Then some of Ava's coworkers joined, and, well, it got messy. Messy. I could almost admire the choreography. The tone of the messages was warm, apologetic, even a little self-deprecating, enough to make me feel like maybe I was overreacting for thinking it was deliberate. But there was no apology for not calling me once they realized the so-called mix-up. No, wish you could have joined after all. Just a pat on the head and a rewritten version of the night that didn't leave much space for questions. That would have been easier to swallow if it were the first time something like this had happened. But as I sat there at the kitchen table with the phone cooling in my hand, I realized it wasn't. Not even close. Ava has always been quick with explanations that make you feel petty for asking in the first place. "Oh, you'd have been bored. It was mostly industry people. It was last minute. You'd already made other plans. They needed help covering the bar tab, and I knew you'd want to be generous." I used to let those pass without much thought. Now, the memory of each one came back in sharp detail, like pins on a map. And Cole, his name had been showing up more and more in the background of those explanations. Work dinners, gallery openings, quick drinks after long days at the office. Always with a reason why I shouldn't or didn't need to be there. I told myself I wasn't going to jump to conclusions. I'm not a jealous guy by nature, and I've never been the type to police my wife's friendships. But I also wasn't blind. And the thing that needled me most wasn't even the photos. It was how fast they'd been pulled down. Someone, maybe Ava, maybe someone else, had looked at those pictures and decided they were a problem. Not because they were innocent, but because they looked like they weren't. By midnight, the official family recap was up on Facebook, complete with a smiling *T of Mia and Trevor and a caption about, "In * mate celebrations." No Cole. No champagne. No borrowed jackets. It was like watching a memory get cleaned in real time, scrubbed until it was safe to display. I didn't comment, didn't like the post, didn't even open the family group chat to acknowledge it. I just sat there with my phone face down on the table, wondering if the mix-up that kept me out of the picture was really a mistake, or just the way things worked now. That night, I did the thing you're not supposed to do if you want to stay calm. I scrolled backward through my marriage like it was a camera roll. If the engagement dinner was one snapsh asterisk T, the older frames told the story, the ones I'd blurred with good intentions and a flexible credit limit. I sat on the couch with the TV glowing blue and let the reel spin. The first thing that surfaced was how invitations started arriving only when my status or my card could do something. "You should come to the fundraiser," Ava would say, then add, "They're short a sponsor for the silent auction." My name showed up on the banner. My chair never showed up at the table. When I did attend, I was the guy by the check-in desk with a donor badge and no place card, the man thanked from the microphone by someone who thought I was Evan. After a while, I stopped correcting people. It felt easier to be misnamed than to admit I'd paid to be there. Guest lists told the same joke. Friends would ask, "You going to the agency mixer?" And I'd laugh like we had a bit. "Apparently I'm on the wait list," I'd say. Then I'd watch stories later. Ava in a corner booth with the same circle, the same clinking glasses, the same man orbiting a little too close. Cole, loose shoulders, a camera's favorite angle. Captions said, "Team night" or "Work family." My name never made the photo dump. I remembered the phones. Face down at restaurants, not because she wanted to be present, but because she wanted the screen to be private. Disappearing chats, the kind that melt after you read them. I told myself that was normal because privacy is healthy, right? It's modern. It's enlightened. It's also convenient when you don't want timelines. Then there were purchases that traveled farther than I did. "Can you put the deposit on your card?" she'd ask. "We'll split it later. Gift from both of us." I'd nod. That's what you do when you're married and want to be supportive. Later I'd see the wrapped box in a photo. Perfect ribbon, perfect light. The tag signed with only her name in that neat looping script. People commented, "Ava always goes above and beyond." I told myself it didn't matter whose name was printed because the intention was shared. The receipt certainly was. Family photos started cropping me out even when I was standing there. There's a sh*T from last Thanksgiving that looks like a magazine spread. Ava and Mia on the couch. Their parents behind them. The dog exactly where a stylist would put him. I'm present, technically, reflected in a thin pane of window glass, holding a tray no one remembers asking for. That became a metaphor I couldn't unsee. Me in the reflection, carrying something heavy, smiling so I wouldn't drop it. The emergency contact thing should have been a siren. I found out by accident when Ava had a mild allergic reaction at a tasting and the clinic called to confirm insurance. "We reached your emergency contact, Cole," the receptionist said, breezy as a weather report. I stood there with my license out, deciding whether to correct her in front of Ava or pretend I hadn't heard. I chose silence. Later, I asked about it gently, expecting an easy fix. "It's just the agency paperwork," Ava said. "Cole's on the sheet because he's on site more." She kissed my cheek and switched the subject to whether oat milk froth's better than almond. I let it go because it was Tuesday and I was tired. The restaurants repeated like a playlist on loop. "Work dinner," she'd say, grabbing a blazer, perfume bright as a bell. "Don't wait up." It was always the same two places, one with velvet banquettes, one with an open kitchen you could film through. After Mia's small gathering, I scrubbed through geotags and friends' stories and felt that heat climb my neck. There they were, the whole glittering circle, in the same rooms on the same nights Ava swore were client only. Cole in sh*T after sh*T, the kind of background extra who steals scenes if you let him. I tried to give myself an out. Maybe I was jealous. Maybe I was embarrassed about the dinner and looking for someone to blame. But patterns don't care about your pride. They just keep repeating until you name them. And this one had a caption I couldn't ignore. My presence was optional. My card was not. So I started counting, not money at first. Moments. The time she asked me to send a quick wire for a venue placeholder. And the amount happened to match the final invoice. The weekend my name was left off the hotel block even though my card reserved it. The bouquet delivered to the office after a campaign win. attached to a note signed, "We're so proud of you, eh? No, Ethan. Not even an ampersand. Once you notice, you can't unknow." I remembered a night she came home at 2, shoes in hand, the kind of tired that looks like glass. "We had to smooth things over with a client," she said, collapsing onto the bed. "Cole handled it, mostly." She said his name like he was a tool the office kept, a stapler, a company card, a fire extinguisher. Later I saw a tagged photo from the same night. Not a client in sight, just a cluster of familiar faces and a caption. "Family dinner, love." My stomach didn't drop. It clicked, like a lock opening. I went looking for proof I was imagining things and found the opposite. Calendar invites where I was marked optional. Email threads forwarded without attachments. A saved draft of a thank you note to a caterer that began "on behalf of Ava and me," edited down to "on behalf of Ava." The version that got sent is the only one the world remembers. I rewound farther to the parts that had felt cute then. When we started dating, she'd joke I was logistics and she was vibes. I liked the division. I booked flights, found parking, checked in early. She floated through rooms with the warm, high-tide charm people mistake for sunlight. Somewhere along the line, the joke hardened. Logistics became an identity. Vibes became a currency. And my generosity, money, time, reputation, became the sponge that soaked up every spill. The worst part of the rewind wasn't jealousy. It was deflection. Every time I asked a simple question, where was the invite? Why am I the emergency contact one day and not the next? I got a story that made me feel small for asking. "You're being literal," she'd say, like I was a spreadsheet with legs. "You know how these things are." Yes, I did. I was paying for them. I thought about our language. We, us, our budget, our gift. But when receipts got scanned for the family album, captions never said, "Ethan and Ava." They said, "Ava's generosity." Ava pulled strings. Ava made magic. I told myself that was fine, her family, her stage, her shine. I can be a quiet person. There's honor in that. But there's a difference between being quiet and being erased. It wasn't all big-ticket stuff. Some of it was simple minutes I'll never get back. Waiting in my car outside restaurants that didn't have parking, so she wouldn't have to pay valet. Rewriting her emails because she was too fried to sound professional. Canceling a weekend with my friends because she needed me to drive tables between venues. Each thing small enough to excuse, together heavy enough to bend a life. Around 2 in the morning, I opened a note on my phone and typed a sentence that looked like a dare. What would this story look like if I wasn't paying for it? I locked the screen and listened to the house breathe. Somewhere down the hall, a phone buzzed. Short, bright, guilty, and went quiet. The screen would be face down. It always was. I didn't decide anything that night. No plan, no ultimatum. I just let the pattern exist without my usual edits. I let myself admit that a man's hands on my wife's waist in a photo wasn't the first frame, and a borrowed jacket wasn't the last. They were simply the parts that finally developed clearly enough that I couldn't pretend the negatives were blank. Before I drifted off, I opened the family thread, the one that called my absence a mix-up. I typed, "Congrats to Mia and Trevor," deleted it, typed, "Next time, send the mix-up to my bank first," deleted that too. I set my phone face down on the table, pretending the off-screen world paused when I looked away. It vibrated once more, a small pulse like a heartbeat. For the first time in a long time, I noticed I wasn't waiting for it. And that made all the other buzzing, past and future, finally make sense. A week later, the confirmation didn't come in a shouting match or a tearful confession. It arrived as a calendar notification on my work laptop. Proofs available, Mia and Trevor engagement dinner. It was from the photographer who had my corporate email because my card had been used for the deposit months ago. I didn't remember agreeing to that. I remembered a lunch where Ava said, "It'll be easier if you handle it. Business cards don't get flagged." I clicked without breathing. The link opened a private gallery with a linen-colored background and polite serif fonts. "Welcome, guests," it read, in a tone that assumed I'd been in the room. Thumbnails tiled across the page. Candids, toasts, the ring balanced on a peony. The kind of tasteful blur that makes money look like a mood. I started watching like a man testing electric fences with his fingertips, waiting for the snap I could pretend hadn't hurt. The first folder was harmless. It was the usual. Mia shining, Trevor flushed with champagne, parents in that proud, awkward posture people take when they're not sure where to put their hands. I scrolled, half hoping the night would soften into something I could forgive. Just bad angles and easy gossip. Then a subfolder caught my eye. Dance floor highlights. I clicked. The first clip loaded with a low hum of music, bodies swaying under skylights. Ava slid into frame in a dress I knew, hair up, laughing. Cole stepped in, the camera tightening as if it recognized a scene. There was a beat where their faces hovered inches apart. The same near whisper I'd seen in photos, but this time the gap didn't hold. She kissed him. No confusion. No misread cheek. A full, certain kiss, the kind of movement you recognize even in silhouette. I didn't react at first. I just watched it again, like replaying a missed call to confirm the number. Then I let the mouse fall out of my hand and listened to it thud on the desk. Somewhere in the frame, someone hooped. The photographer held the sh*t an extra second, as if to honor the composition. When the clip ended, the site offered me a tasteful button, Add to Favorites. I closed the tab, opened it again, and scrolled to the Details and Orders link at the top right. It took me to a client portal with invoices and print packages. My name sat on the payer line for the event retainer. Below it, another document waited under Associated Orders. I opened it without thinking. It wasn't photos. It was a PDF from the hotel next door. Honeymoon suite. One night, late checkout, turn down, champagne for two. Billed to Ava's card. Notes field, couple departing late. Please stage petals. There are a lot of ways doubt can stay alive if you feed it reasons. None of them survive paperwork. I stared at the line items, the room type, the timestamp, the charge captured at 1:18 a.m. and felt something inside me switch off like a breaker thrown to protect a house that's sparking. I could hear my own breath, shallow and mechanical, like I'd outsourced it to a machine that didn't care how I felt. I downloaded everything, the gallery index, the invoice, the email headers, then forwarded the link to my personal account because I didn't want IT archiving the collapse of my marriage. I didn't delete the original message. Let it sit in the corporate cloud, I thought, a neat entry on a ledger. Services rendered, balance due. The strangest part was what I didn't feel. No rage, no urge to call, no cinematic storm out. Just an exhausted kind of clarity, like finally reading the manual for a device you've been using wrong and realizing all the errors were predictable. I made tea I didn't drink. I walked to the window and watched my reflection hold still in the glass while traffic went on being traffic. When I could use my hands again, I called the bank and asked a practical question about authorizations and pending charges. The representative was cheerful, oblivious. We can freeze joint cards and reissue numbers, she said. Effective immediately. I thanked her like she'd shown me to a table. Before I shut my laptop, I went back to the gallery and scrolled one more time, not to punish myself but to make sure I'd seen what I'd seen. The site tracked recent visitors in a sidebar. Tiny circles with initials. AC had been there 10 minutes earlier. Cole. I clicked the heart under the clip out of a petty, private instinct. Yes, this is a favorite. Let the metadata tell the truth if the people won't. I didn't text Ava. I didn't draft a speech. I wrote a list on a yellow pad instead, like I do when a project goes sideways at work. Title, Next Steps. Under it, Secure Accounts, Change Passwords, **T, Consult Attorney, Don't break things you'll have to replace. I added one more line I didn't recognize in my handwriting until I read it out loud. You are not optional. I kept noticing little cruelties in the interface. Hover and the metadata bloomed. Timestamps, lens info, geotags pinned to the ballroom. The kiss clip was stamped 12:41 a.m. The hotel charge posted at 1:18 a.m. The sweet note read rose petals on turndown. A detail so on the nose it felt scripted. I remembered the day the deposit cleared. Ava texted thank you, with confetti. Then, a beat later, we'll settle up after the event. Settle up meant what it always meant. I would forget to ask and she would forget to remember. Seeing my corporate email on the client line made it look official, like the company had co-signed our private lie. I opened the clip again and tried to see it like a stranger. If I didn't know the names, would it just look like two people caught in a moment? Probably. The camera didn't know the difference between a vow and a betrayal. It only knew light. But I knew the jacket she wore, the number the clinic dialed, the card that smoothed invoices no one sent me. The image didn't lie. It just refused to explain. My laptop fan word. I clicked log out. Confirmed. Confirmation doesn't arrive with a drumroll. It sits beside you and starts sorting your papers. When the kettle clicked off again, ghost heat, or maybe I'd flipped it twice, I shut everything down. I emptied the dishwasher. I folded the blanket she likes on the couch and left it there, undisturbed, like a taped-off square at a crime scene. I turned off the lights and went to bed alone in the house I'd been sharing with a stranger. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. Not because I was okay, but because I finally knew what the story was, and it was simple in a way pain sometimes is. The doubt had ended. In the morning, the email was still there, cheerful as ever. Your favorites are ready to order, it said. I archived it, copied the link into a folder I labeled plainly, evidence, and closed the lid. Doubt was over. The next part would not be a conversation. It would be paperwork, signatures, locks clicking. Actions, not words. The kind of steps you can itemize, initial, and file. The kind that leave a trail no one can delete overnight. The morning after I watched Ava kiss Cole on the dance floor, I didn't wake up angry. I woke up operational. I didn't touch my phone except to disable Apple Pay on the joint cards. At the bank, I sat across from a woman in a navy suit and slid my ID across the desk. I'd like to freeze these accounts, I said. Her screen flickered with the list. Checking, savings, 2 credit lines, the travel card. Lost cards? She asked. No, I said. Misplaced trust. She didn't press. 10 minutes later, I walked out with a new debit card in my pocket and the joint ones flagged for destruction. On the drive home, my hands stayed loose on the wheel. I wasn't rehearsing a speech. Words were the problem. Too many of them thrown at me over the years, spun into little weather systems of excuses. This wasn't about words. That afternoon, I started with the paper trail. Ava's family had a habit of treating my wallet like the family printer. Always on, always stocked, always accessible. Mia's wedding was the next milestone. Lavish venue, imported flowers, a band that billed by the half hour. I'd already heard the pitch over brunch. You've been so generous in the past, Ethan, it wouldn't feel right not to have you involved. Involved meant underwriting. I typed a letter instead. Simple, clear. I will not be providing financial contributions to events from which I have been excluded. I will not guarantee vendor payments on behalf of other parties. Past practice does not establish obligation. I sent it to every email in their planning chain, Mia, her mother, the planner, 2 vendors I recognized. Then I attached a PDF, high-res scans of contracts I'd signed for prior events. The loops of my signature slightly too uniform. Underneath each, I'd stamped unauthorized in red. If they thought I'd keep funding parties I wasn't invited to, they could take that up with the fraud department. By 3 o'clock, my phone was vibrating in short, angry bursts. Ava's name, her mother's, Mia, new hashtag. I let them stack in the missed call log. Instead, I called the caterer Mia had bragged about booking. This is Ethan, I said. I'm withdrawing as guarantor for your April event. Please confirm in writing that my name will be removed from all payment obligations. The man sounded confused, then cautious. We have a signed. You have a copy, I corrected. You do not have my consent. You'll want to clear that up before you prep so much as a breadstick. I hung up before he could stall. It wasn't petty. It was a boundary you could notarize. By the end of the day, the only shared resource still breathing was the mortgage account, and even that was on my list. I pulled every bank statement from the past 18 months, Flagging charges Ava had labeled as work dinners or client gifts that match dates and vendors in Mia's event threads. There were more overlaps than I'd guessed. Same restaurants, same floral suppliers, even a jeweler. The receipts told their own story. My family budget funding upgrades for a party I didn't attend. A ring for someone else's proposal. Bar tabs where the service charge alone could cover a week's groceries. The knock came just after dark. Ava stood on the porch in her coat, hair down like she thought that would soften the shape of the day. "Ethan, we need to." I stepped aside without speaking, just enough for her to see the dining table. My laptop was open to a spreadsheet. Column A, dates. Column B, vendors. Column C, amounts. Column D, notes like coincides with photos from Mia's small gathering. "What is this?" she asked. "A list of charges I won't be paying again." Her jaw tightened. "You froze the accounts." "Yes. That's not how families handle." "Families," I said, "don't give someone else's husband the emergency contact spot." She flinched at that, but I didn't chase it. For years, confrontation had been this endless verbal chess match, me trying to prove a pattern, her feeding me just enough context to make me doubt the board. This time, there was no opening for her to play in. Just the freeze of her name at the top of a statement, next to a figure and a timestamp. She didn't ask to sit. When she left, the only sound was the lock turning behind her. I went back to the spreadsheet. It wasn't about punishment. It was about inventory, knowing what had been taken and how, so I could decide what was worth replacing. By midnight, the first email replies were coming in. The caterer confirmed I was removed as guarantor. The florist, more polite, assured me they'd adjusted the billing contact to the bride's family. The band's manager sent a single line, "Understood." I shut the laptop and, for the first time in months, didn't feel the need to check who was texting. Whatever the fallout would be, it was already moving without me feeding it another word. It wasn't closure, not yet, but it was a start.